If there was no sex, no touching, no physical cheating, why does it still feel like a betrayal? Because everything you've been taught about cheating breaks down here. Your brain doesn't measure betrayal by rules. It measures it by emotional safety. And when that shifts, your body reacts first. So the real question isn't whether it counts. It's what was actually taken. Is emotional cheating really cheating? Part 1. Why this question shows up at all. If this question has been circling in your mind, it's usually not random. It shows up when something has already shifted. Most often, it begins when emotional needs stop being met. Quietly, someone feels unseen, unheard, taken for granted, lonely inside the relationship. And then, somewhere else, there's relief. Conversation flows. Understanding feels easier. You feel more emotionally alive. At first, it doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like breathing again. The question shows up when you notice the contrast. When you realize, I feel more understood here than I do at home. That's when the discomfort starts. The question also tends to appear after quiet moments you don't talk about out loud. When conversations start getting hidden. When messages get deleted just in case. When contact with someone else gives you a rush. And when, without realizing it, you start turning toward them when you're stressed. Nothing dramatic, but enough to create internal friction. And instead of asking, what's happening to my relationship? The mind asks something safer. Does this even count as cheating? That question creates just enough distance to avoid dealing with what's actually happening. Part 2. Why your mind can't let it go. This is the part that really messes with people. Emotional uncertainty is harder for the brain to tolerate than clear betrayal. When something is clearly wrong, your mind can respond. But when something feels wrong without a clear rule being broken, your brain stays on high alert. That's why this question doesn't sit quietly. It loops. You replay moments, reread messages, reanalyze tone, timing, and energy. Not because you want drama, but because your mind is trying to locate the threat. This is where self-doubt starts to creep in. If you can't point to a rule that was broken, you start wondering if the problem is you. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I'm just insecure. And the more you question yourself, the harder it becomes to trust your own perception. That's the destabilizing part. And this is where reassurance fails. Being told nothing happened doesn't calm the nervous system when something still feels off. Because reassurance only works when the brain understands what it's being reassured about. And when reassurance doesn't resolve the uncertainty, the tension grows. Part 3. What cheating actually is. Here's where a lot of the confusion actually comes from. People focus on what happened instead of what shifted. Cheating isn't really about bodies. It's about where emotional intimacy goes. Every relationship has an emotional center where closeness, reassurance, vulnerability, and priority live. When that center starts moving somewhere else, the bond changes even if nothing physical ever happens. This distinction matters more than people realize. Feeling attraction is human. Noticing someone, feeling chemistry, having a spark. Those things happen without choice, and by themselves, they don't take anything away from the relationship. Choosing to invest emotionally is where crossing the line starts. That's the difference. Emotional investment is active. It's choosing who you turn to for comfort, who you confide in, who you feel understood by, who becomes emotionally important. And emotional energy is finite. When it's redirected elsewhere, especially privately, the relationship feels the absence. Part 4. What breaks in emotional cheating? This is the part people feel long before they can explain it. What actually gets broken isn't trust in the dramatic sense, it's emotional safety. More specifically, it's the sense that emotional closeness is exclusive, reliable, and secure. Emotional safety is regulation. It's the feeling that there's one place in your life where closeness is stable, where reassurance is consistent, and where you don't have to compete for emotional connection. When that safety exists, your nervous system stays calm without you thinking about it. When emotional investment starts moving elsewhere, that safety weakens. Not loudly, not all at once, but quietly enough that your body notices before your mind does. That's why emotional cheating hurts before you can explain it. Part 5. How emotional safety erodes. Here's what that erosion looks like in real life. It doesn't disappear through a single moment. It fades through a shift in emotional priority. It starts when you realize you're no longer the first place they turn. Emotional safety erodes when emotional reliance outside the relationship starts to feel normal. At first, that reliance feels harmless. You turn to someone else when you're stressed. You share things there first. You feel more understood there. It doesn't feel like a choice. It just feels easier. But emotional energy is finite. And every time emotional grounding happens somewhere else, the relationship absorbs the absence. That's when comparison starts. They seem more present elsewhere. They light up differently. They share more freely. And slowly, without anyone saying it out loud, your role shifts. Not because you were rejected, but because you were edged out emotionally. Quick pause. If this is helping you put words to something that's been hard to explain, hit like, subscribe, and let's figure this out together. This channel focuses on the psychology behind moments that don't make sense on the surface. All right, back to it. Part 6. So, is emotional cheating really cheating? Here's the honest answer, without moralizing it. Psychologically, yes. Emotional cheating happens when emotional closeness is redirected away from the relationship. Not because of intent, not because of attraction, not because someone set out to hurt anyone, but because emotional intimacy, the comfort, reassurance, and sense of being understood is no longer centered where the relationship expects it to be. Emotional cheating isn't defined by a single act. It's defined by a shift in emotional alignment. Who gets your vulnerability? Who you turn to first? Who holds emotional priority? When emotional closeness is redirected to someone else and kept private, emotional safety inside the relationship weakens. People don't ask this question when everything feels secure and aligned. They ask it when something has already changed. When a bond is forming where it shouldn't. When a need is being met somewhere else. When a choice is approaching but hasn't been made yet. So the question itself isn't the problem. It's a signal that emotional closeness has moved in a way the relationship hasn't caught up to. And understanding that is the first step toward deciding what to do next, honestly and without self-deception.